Stupid Dave here with a very special edition of Bleeding Edge interviews, whatever we want to call it. There's no interview today, just processing rather big news. As you can tell, if you clicked on this, you saw what the title and the caption was. Yes, biggest news, at least in the last almost 2 years. Maybe biggest news close to 13 years. I don't know, but right now what we're looking at is Mike Portnoy is back in Dream Theater. Mike Portnoy is back in Dream Theater. It bears repeating. I am shocked, flabbergasted, gobsmacked, all those things. This was not expected. As much as I keep my ear on the news, that's what's going on in the world of the Progosphere, this was not ever expected to happen. They'd started to mend fences a bit, it seems like, and there seemed to be a closeness developing. Mike played on John Petrucci's solo album, and they got back together for Liquid Tension Experiment, and he and James LaBrie mended fences, it seems, and he was showing up at their concerts and things like that. He was at Dream Sonic. My girlfriend saw him and got a picture with him. I missed out on that, as I usually do in these kinds of things. Although I will admit, brief moment aside, back at the Porcupine Tree concert at the Met in Philly, I bumped into Mike, and he was a kind soul, allowed me to take a picture with him, as she took a picture with him as well. It was one of those moments where somebody said, "Hey, is that Mike Portnoy?" And as I turned to talk to her, she was gone. She was already halfway to him. So I had no choice but to follow. And he was super nice and super gracious. And honestly, I personally, in my entire lifetime, had never encountered a celebrity in the wilds. So I don't even know if who knows? I think my brain went blank a little bit. I got the picture with him. I'll be damned. I don't remember if I said thank you. I don't remember what else I said to him. I didn't talk much because I didn't want to interrupt and impose myself on what he was doing. So I didn't say too much, which would have been a great time to say, "Hey, dude, I do this show." I did not. So anyway, Mike, if you happen to be seeing this, I want to say right now, sir, thank you very much for your time that day. Appreciate your graciousness and your willingness to give time to the fans, and in particular to me on that night. If I failed to express that gratitude to you, please forgive me. I was, at that moment, a little bit out of my element, and I think my brain might have shut off ever so slightly. So my apologies to you for that. I hope that's not what happened. Anyway, moving on. This was not supposed and was not expected to happen again. It just seemed like, they had all made their decisions and moved on with the things. And Mike has been involved in so many projects over the last 12, 13 years, from filling in on Avenged Sevenfold to playing in the Neil Morse Band and Transatlantic and Flying Colors and Winery Dogs and all the other various projects he's been involved in at times. He is a busy dude. He's been doing a lot of different things, and I don't know if those things will continue. We'll talk about that in a moment, but right now I'm just excited that he is back in the band where I discovered him. So my relationship with Dream Theater began 92, late 92, early 93. I happened to be in a CD store, record store, back when they had those kinds of things, and album cover for Images and Words caught my eye, and noticed some promotional stickers on the outside of it. And of course, what really got my attention was the description in quotes of Yes meets Metallica. I was sold right there. It's all it took. Hadn't heard a word or a note of the music, hadn't heard anything. Bought that album. Loved it. Still love it. It is, for me, one of those few albums out there that is basically perfect. There are no skipped songs in that album for me. And I go back to it pretty often. And for me, that started, a love affair with that band that lasted till now, really. And it was one of those things where, hey, old Rush head, Rush will always be my favorite band, and Neil Peart will always be my favorite drummer. I can't see that ever changing. But Dream Theater and Mike Portnoy, respectively, became close seconds for me. So for my mind, and especially when you look at the band as they were configured in 1999 with Scenes from a Memory when Jordan Rudess joined the band. Hey, got a picture with him too. And that was when they became the classic version of Dream Theater for me. Kevin Moore was awesome. Derek Sherinian was great. But for overall, in my perspective, they were comparatively short timers. And Jordan became that permanent fixture. And he's amazing. And so that's the classic version of that. A different variation of that will always feel off for me a little bit. And Mike Portnoy was always such a big front and center personality for them. So to have Dream Theater without Mike Portnoy has just been a very strange thing. Mike Mangini is an amazing drummer. Absolutely top tier talent. He's a cool dude. I've spoken to him. I've done an interview with him. And he was nothing but super cool. So I have had no issues whatsoever with Mangini stepping in. He's been great. He's done everything they've asked him to do. And he has done it with just top tier level talent. So there's never been in my mind a drive to say, hey, I gotta get Mangini out of there, or Mangini's not good. Never. It's never been that thing for me. So I am sad in that sense too that Mike Mangini will be gone. You know, like I feel a little badly for him, and I empathize. I don't know what it was like for all this to take place for him. So in that sense, yeah, like that for him, I imagine this isn't as much fun, but hey, maybe he had a desire to go. Maybe he was cool with it. I don't know. But I can say that for me, the idea that Mike Portnoy is back in Dream Theater just feels right. It just feels like this is how it should be. And I hope that he brings back influences from all this other stuff he's been doing to the band and just revitalizes them in some ways and brings it back. Because here's that other part. There's mixed feelings for me overall in this. This is why I had to process this so much, not just because it's so completely out of the blue, but the idea that I may not ever get to hear new music again from Transatlantic or Flying Colors or the Winery Dogs. I don't know what this means for the Neil Morse Band. I would presume Neil Morse will continue to do what Neil Morse does because he's a dude every bit as busy as Mike Portnoy is. So I don't know. And honestly, the two of them are so busy, especially Portnoy, it seemed, it became a running gag on my original show, Bleeding Edge, for which this is named. It was a radio show on a station, Toxic Radio. It was online. And it was focused on progressive metal. So a lot of Portnoy came up, to the point that I joked that he was the patron saint of Bleeding Edge. And every time his name came up, you could count on me hitting the little sound effect for the choir to sing, hey, the patron saint, and God bless him. You could count on one of my regular listeners, Brad, every single time to drop that picture of Mike Portnoy in the chat. Thank you for that, Brad. So that was a long-running gag there. But so that's how big Portnoy is. And that's how big he's been and how active he's been. Does this mean those things won't continue? Because if they don't, I'm going to be sad about that. I've enjoyed those projects very much, immensely. They have filled out my world in some ways. They have embellished it. Those aren't quite the words I'm looking for, but it doesn't matter. But the main point being is I really, really will be a little sad if I don't get those things anymore. At the same time, Mike, who is about the same age as I am, if he is at a point in his life where he's decided, I have been all over the place doing all these different things, I don't want to have to come into the studio every day and have people wear name tags because I don't remember which band I'm playing for. I'm sure he does. That he wants to maybe just streamline things and simplify and get back to focusing on one project. I can get that, or maybe he's making room for other things and this is where he decided he wanted to be. If that's where his life is taking him, super cool, dude. I get it. I completely understand, and I support it. Um, and I will be sad if I don't get to hear those other projects again too. I can be both. I can support you and be sad at the same time, and be excited you're back in Dream Theater, where in my mind you've always belonged. Okay, now here's the other part, and it gets a little more complicated. I'll preface this by saying that I don't do album reviews, for a reason. I do reactions, and I do reactions to things that obviously I don't already know. And I will generally do things outside of my typical comfort zone of progressive rock, although I will still do some new prog rock music when it comes out from time to time if I have the opportunity to hear somebody new for the first time, or at least somebody new to me. But for the most part, I don't do album reviews because my focus has been interviews. And what I don't want to have to worry about happening is there being a point where I want to interview somebody, but maybe there's some baggage attached to that interview because maybe I dumped on their last album or one of their previous albums or something like that. And that baggage creates a situation in which they don't want to do the interview, or it becomes awkward. That could happen too. And so I don't want that to be an interference. I don't want that to get in the way. And honestly, I don't, especially for myself, enjoy doing album reviews. There are people out there doing a much better job at it than I can. There's guys out there that absolutely nail it. They're eloquent, and they are better at expressing it overall than I think I am. For me, it's like, yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's not bad. I'm in there. It's just not my thing. I want to do the interviews, and I don't want there being baggage to get in the way. That being said, here's the part where I'm excited, and cautiously so, is that if I'm honest, the last several Dream Theater albums just haven't connected with me as well as their earlier work did. That probably sounds like a common complaint. A lot of fans have that. They're not like it was in the old days. And I'll be honest, they're not the only band I've had that with. Rush, my favorite band of all time. You know what? On their way out, their last few albums, a couple of them I didn't love. There were songs on it I loved. Far Cry, for me, off of Snakes and Arrows, stands with the best they've ever done. The rest of the album, not as much for me. Sorry, Geddy and Alex. Until Clockwork Angels. That one really connected with me. And it was such a perfect, in many ways, end to their career together, that maybe that emotion attaches to it as well. It's hard to say, but it's been that way with Dream Theater. I've felt to an extent like they hit a bit of a rut, and I feel like something new needed to be introduced to the mix to shake it up, to revitalize them, to get them back to the levels of exploration that they seem to hit up to Octavarium. So I'm hoping maybe this is that trigger for that maybe this charges them up in a way that they haven't been for a while. Mike brings back some influences that he didn't have previously, and that they didn't have previously, and I get an album that feels like it did back in their day. I'm not saying any of their albums have been bad, by the way. Let me be clear about that. I don't know that Dream Theater is actually capable of just flat out making bad music. I don't think that's a thing that they can do. They're too good. They're just too talented for that. And I want an album that hits me like Scenes from a Memory did, that hits me like Awake, or Images and Words, or Octavarium. Any of those albums to me were just absolute masterpieces. And I haven't felt that way for a while. I hate to say that. I really do. Because I want to talk to these guys, and I don't want them to hold it against me. I haven't disliked what they've done. I just haven't loved it like I used to. So anyway, this is me processing what to me was a big event. I mean, this is a huge event, since the last huge event, which was early 2022, when all of a sudden, out of the blue, 12 Years Left for Dead, Porcupine Tree announces they're going to have a new album and tour. Okay, cool. And it was so completely out of the blue. This, completely out of the blue. I mean, I don't know what else would be bigger news unless you told me that, hey, Roger Waters and David Gilmour are getting back together and making another Pink Floyd album. That's not happening, I know. That's about the only thing I can think of that would be bigger news than this. So I'm charged up. I'm hoping very much that this is felt in the next Dream Theater album strongly. I want to see that kind of level from them again. And maybe I've just been too picky. Maybe I got jaded. Maybe I'm one of those dickhead fans. I don't know. But I do think this could be a wonderful thing. And I'm excited that they're excited he's back. And I'm happy to see Mike back in the band that he founded, because that just seems right to me. That just seems to be the best thing and the right thing to do. So those are my thoughts on that. Nobody asked. Nobody said, Dave, tell me what you think. I'm doing it because I'm doing it. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this. If you did, give me the like. If you could, hit a subscribe. Check out my reaction videos, my interview videos. Got more coming on the way. Give the like, do the subscribe thing. Hit the bell so that you know when this stuff comes out, because I'm going to be a little sporadic. I'll just be upfront about that as it is. And follow along. And if you enjoy prog rock like I do and prog metal, head to The Expanse on Live 365. You will find all you need all day long, curated by me and updated all the time. So, for all that, this is Super Dave, signing off.